the coolest stations in the world.
Utah's highest rated, most listened to sports radio show for over 20 years.
Everyone's listening.
This is DJ and PK on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
Join Hans and Scotty Wednesday. They're going to be at RGS Exteriors from noon to 3, 4235 Farm Road in West Jordan. DJ and PK, it's 97.5 The Zone. We got Mike Fulter, radio voice of the Utah Hockey Club, coming up at 9 o'clock. We got a Utah Jazz Ticket Tuesday. We'll give away tickets later this hour to see the Jazz as they return to action Friday night. They're going to be at the Delta Center. Oklahoma City Thunder will be in town. We'll send somebody out to that game. And we got to talk college hoops with Steve Cleveland. It's February. Football is over. Half dozen games to go, 5 or 6, depending on how your schedule falls here, PK. Before we go to the conference tournaments, are you feeling it now?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Now's the time. Yeah. Once you pass President's Day, and I covered college basketball for many, many years as a beat writer for the Watchdog. But even before that,
you could just feel it.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
The way the players talk to you, the way the coaches talk to you.
Yeah. It's on.
It's on. Yeah.
Right.
You know what you're playing for, whether you're playing for a league title, whether you're playing for seeding in the NCAA. Yeah. You're on the bubble trying to get in.
Right. Yeah.
You're trying to bail out and save a winning season.
And for the Utah, it was all those years was mostly seeding.
Playing for the conference title and seeding.
And then for BYU, it was about getting there. Yeah. And once you pass President's Day, I don't know you could probably come up with some relation to another sport. But I always felt once we got past President's Day, it was on. And it was like, okay, I am immersed in college basketball until whichever team I covered is done, which for Utah, it was always well into March.
DJ PK, and we are joined now by Steve Cleveland. Coach, good morning.
Morning, fellas.
I'm curious, did you turn on the TV over the weekend, look at the pit, and have really fond memories? Did you have nightmares, or do you see it and you turn it off? Or you know it's coming and you avoid it completely?
Well, you know what? It's always a difficult place to play, but I did have one of the most miraculous wins ever there when we were young, and we go to the pit, and I think at that time New Mexico was rated 13th or 14th. They were very good. And we came in there and shot the lights out and upset them, and then beat UTEP the following couple nights later. So
in triple overtime, Coach.
Yeah, I know. I've had some really cool experiences there, and I'll tell you what's most difficult is getting out of the arena and going up to the locker room. It's mile high there anyway. I can remember running up and excited and all of a sudden I'm like coughing and I'm not sure I can make it to the top to get back to the locker room. But we had some special moments there, and good memories. Tough place to play. Always had good teams there.
Yeah, the crowd it's the biggest thing. It's their New Mexico's in Albuquerque. It's like their Super Bowl in a sense, because that New Mexico basketball was always the link to the big time. And, it was always something. I was there both those games, covered them for the newspaper, and they were stunning. To me, that's still the most stunning game that I think I've ever covered in terms of outcome, is when your team, your first year, that was basically thrown together on the fly, and you had what you had, and New Mexico was riding high, and you went in there and beat them. It was shocking. I still can remember the looks on those people's faces as I was.
You guys have a better memory than I do.
Yeah.
But there was a fan there, dressed up. Do you remember his name? I'm going to tell a story, but.
Well, not his name as much as PK's nickname for him, which he shared possibly the very first year we were doing the show, and we had not talked about it. And when PK said this nickname, I knew exactly who he was talking about. And I believe it or not, I've never been to a game in the pit. By the time I got here, I didn't get to go to conference tournaments there, and we didn't travel in the regular season. So I've never been to Albuquerque, believe it or not.
Yeah.
But PK says this nickname, which he's about to say, I knew exactly the fan because I'd seen him on camera and thought, what's the deal with that guy? That guy's got to have a story.
If it's the same guy, small guy, all tatted up, I used to call him. I called him the sewer rat.
Sewer rat. Okay. So the funny thing about that fella, and I keep thinking, coming to my mind is like Zeke, but it's probably not. And I'm getting old and not remembering a lot of things in my life. But I'll never forget this guy because he sat really close to us.
Yeah.
And used about as much profanity as anyone could during a full game. And he was only a few steps from me. And he was, it was just blasphemous. I mean, the guy was just going off and off and off. And so we end up, like you said, winning that game and going up to the locker room. And I can never forget somebody pounding on the door as hard as they could. And it was this little guy, all tatted up and everything. Coach Clean, what an amazing win. I started going crazy. And so we had our little reunion. And then after the game, he waited around until we were getting on the team bus. And then I thought, oh, my gosh, this guy might be dangerous, And he comes up to me again and said, man, that was the most amazing thing. And from that time on, he became my greatest fan. And he asked me, he said, do you think I could get some BYU gear? And I said, yes. And so anyway, long story short, I got his address. I sent him a couple of jerseys. Every time we went to UNM, he was wearing a BYU jersey, still yelling at me. And but I'll never forget that. And to be honest with you, he was a really sweet guy, but he was just crazy when he got in the game, and when he's rooting for his Lobos. But that was a memory that will always stick with me.
His nickname, most people call him, that occasionally gets referenced in broadcasts, is Snake. And his name's actually
exactly right.
Mark is actually his name.
It's what, Mark?
Mark, yeah.
Oh, okay. But Snake is it. That's it. You guys, I'm glad you're still young and have memories. So, yeah, it was a Snake. He was incredible. And as Pat mentioned, too, go on there and play UTEP and beat them in triple overtime. It was one of the – honestly, I don't know that I've ever been involved in something that was more unique and more better, more crazy, and it's a memory I'll never lose. I mean, I forget a lot of things these days, but I'll never forget that weekend. That just made our year and got us jump-started us into rebuilding the program.
Yeah, I think that was the last week of the regular season, if I remember correctly, and then you went straight to Vegas. This time of year, I was talking with DJ, me covering college basketball for so many years. Once you got to President's Day, it was on. You take a look at Utah, 2 big wins. Utah State loses in New Mexico, but I don't think they really lost anything in what they need to accomplish. In fact, you can gain a lot from that. They played them tough, literally right down to the end. And so from those two teams' perspective, we'll get to BYU in a bit, but from those two teams' perspective, I think Utah State is bearing down on an NCAA berth. I'd be surprised if they didn't get it. Utah has a little work to do, but they put themselves in position to at least be considered now if they can finish strong.
Yes, and I watched that game, every bit of it, and it was. They played so well, and their size, and I watched them when they beat BYU by 1 or 2 there up at their place. I watched that game, but I haven't watched Utah play a lot. But they were so solid defensively, made big baskets. It was fun to watch them play. And you know what? I think it's been a bit of a surprise, to be honest with you. I think there are a lot of naysayers early on that, Utah, they're talking about job situations and all this negativity. The fact is they've been playing some of the best basketball they've played in a long time. And it's just fun to watch. They just seem really connected and together, and I've enjoyed watching them when I've had an opportunity. But they're well coached, and that was a huge win the other night. And obviously they had beaten BYU previous to that, so fun to watch all the teams. I mean, you look at Utah State, BYU. There's good things happening, and like you said, Utah probably has some work to do. But finish strong, win the tournament. There's a lot of different ways to get to that NCAA tournament, but it's just fun in being in the community and seeing the success of all the teams.
How long does it take to convince guys, especially in this area with so many transfers, that if you play together, you just talked about how good their defense was, how connected they were. Obviously, they rebounded great. So when they got a miss, they ended the possession. They got the rebound most of the time. If they hold a team under 70 points, they win. And so much of basketball is how do we get a shot and are you shooting the three well? If Utah holds people under 70, they win. If they don't hold people under 70, they don't win. That BYU's the exception. That game went overtime. It was in the 60s when it went to OT. It finished 73-72. It's like, guys, if you defend, you can actually do this. And I think they need something because they're 1-6 on the road and they got 3 road games down the stretch. And defense travels. We know all the cliches. You can hang your hat on that on the road. How long does it take before guys will actually listen to you, even when you know you're telling them the absolute truth?
Well, you don't win championships unless you can win on the road, and every and not necessarily just a championship, but getting to the NCAA tournament or getting to the postseason. And I think that I was very fortunate to have good assistant coaches. Heath Troyer was an assistant coach that I had at Fresno City College, at BYU, and then for a couple of years at Fresno State. And he learned from some really good coaches. Boyd Grant, I know a lot of people won't know who he is, but Boyd was a great defensive coach there at Fresno State when I was there, when I was an impressionable, high school and junior college coach. And Ron Adams, and Ron has been someone was a mentor to me, continues to be a good friend. He's been with the Golden State Warriors for a number of years now. But those are the people that I grew up with, and everything was defense. And then those are the days when Fresno State was really good and winning games 46-45, and there was no shot clock, So they guarded, no shot clock, hold the ball, and Boyd won, I think, three championships there. That's 3 or 4 championships, and I grew up on that. And so, when you're a high school coach, you're impressionable. You go to their practices, you watch them. You learn how to defend. The matchup zone was something that I learned as a very young coach from brilliant men, and it really helped me to be successful at each level. And not that, winning a ton of championships, but I was a better coach because I had the influence of men who understood how important defense was. And you could go around the country and talk to the greatest coaches and bring Ron Adams' name up, and everybody's going to tell you that dude's a genius. He's a genius. He's amazing. And Boyd got him started. He wasn't a successful college coach. He had about a 3-year stint at Fresno and didn't have a lot of success, but then all of a sudden, he gets into the NBA for a number of years and has just been amazing with the Warriors. But those are guys that I learned from. And, I always consider myself, I love to tinker with sideline out of bounds plays, quick hitters, things, I was always creating new sets and quick hitters offensively. But at the end of the day, most of my success came from the influence of those men.
Did you feel something once you hit President's Day that it was really on now, as I've been talking about?
Yeah, I think you start looking at the standings, and the competitiveness of the Big 12, and you realize, Houston, Arizona, Tech, ISU, they've all been pretty good. You got BYU and KU and Baylor. I mean, everybody's bunched up, and every game, every night is going to be fun to watch, and it is competitive. And I believe in the Big 12 that there could be 7 or 8 teams going to the NCAA tournament, depending on how people finish. And this, I don't know if this is the toughest league in the country, but it's competitive, man. And there's lots of travel and great coaches, Hall of Fame coaches, that make this league really special. And so, I'm looking at Utah, and those 2 wins were huge. And BYU also, after losing 2 games in a row, they come back and beat West Virginia, and then they beat K-State, and then they've got a big one at Kansas tonight. But it's just so competitive. And I just think that you get hot at the right time here, and who knows? And I'm not going to go to the Big 12 tournament, but, man, that's going to be competitive and fun to watch.
What does BYU have to do to beat Kansas? They're both 17-8. They're both 8-6. Whoever wins this game is all alone in 5th place in the Big 12 and looking really good for the NCAA tournament. And working on seeding. Kansas probably already looks really good for the NCAA tournament, but BYU would really help themselves. What do you think? What's the key? What are you watching for?
Well, I think a couple of things. Number one is that statistically they're very similar. BYU's averaging close to 80 a game, Kansas to 77. Defensively they're kind of on the same mark. So it's a really competitive game. Kansas has maybe the edge with seniors and having some real veteran guys. They have a lot of seniors, and I think they're a team. Dickinson at 7 foot, Zeke Mayo, Harris, Adams. They're all there's real leadership there and a team that's been together. But they've been vulnerable and they've lost games that surprised me. So Bill Self has been a good friend for a long time, and he'll have them ready. But I do believe, as you both have mentioned, that there's going to probably be 7 or 8 teams. But the key for BYU to beat Kansas, I think, is on the boards. Kansas is so big, and then they rebound the ball so well. They can't give Kansas second-chance points, especially at home. I mean, BYU is going to play better at home, and Saunders is doing what he's done. He's been so good all year. Demon Yegor has been better and more consistent catchings. It's fun to watch these younger guys kind of step up right now. But I think it's important that BYU get that kind of scoring. And BYU is becoming a really difficult place to win games in for visitors. It's just intense fan base that just make that environment. But I think that, for BYU, I think rebounding is a huge key. And they're going to have to keep them off the board, take them away from second. I've watched Kansas play 3 or 4 times. Mayo and Harris, I mean, they're good guards and they're consistent. But I don't think they have guys that can just take over the game. If Dickinson comes in and scores 20 and 10, I think they win. If he doesn't, then we'll see what happens. But that's going to be a tough guard. I think Cade is going to play more minutes against Kansas than maybe Traore, because it's a situation that he's got such size and he's so dominant in there that I mean they're switching with Traore and Foose and going back and forth with each other, playing the big. But Hunter Dickinson's a handful, and I think if he has a big game and Kansas can keep it close, they've got a chance. But I think both teams are going to the tournament.
Kevin Young has tinkered with his rotations, which is understandable. It's easy to say in retrospect, but, he was so new and they were new to him and everything was new, and he's finding out more about his guys. I'm wondering, man, he tries to play so many guys. How difficult is that?
Yeah, I mean, as a coach, usually by this time of the year, you've kind of got yourself in a position where you're playing. You've got a rotation. And certainly Saunders and Yegor and Traore and Catchings and Baker and Hall, Cada, I mean, they're all playing. The guys that are kind of X factors for me are Mag and Boscovich. They're just sturdy and strong and can come in there and get second rebounds and third rebounds. And they've actually, I think, been difference makers for this team. Certainly Saunders has led this team the entire year. And Yegor seems to have more confidence and playing better. Nell's there for shooting. He can't, it's hard for him to guard. And, his minutes will be limited. Traore's the same thing. Against really big dominant post players, he struggles with that. The guy that for me is Catchings. I think he's found some confidence. Baker's always been consistent coming in and out, but you just never know. The key of this team, to be honest with you, is probably Dallin Hall. And I know a lot of people love him and a lot of people are not high on him. But there's some leadership there, and anytime the game gets close and things are really important, Dallin Hall seems to be on the floor because he does make good decisions. He's a tough cookie, and he hits some big threes in the last 3 or 4 weeks in games that were really meaningful. But they are playing a lot of guys. I mean, all of the guys I've mentioned are playing. And it'll be interesting to see what the rotation is. For me, I was always more comfortable knowing I had my 7 or 8 guys, 6, 7 guys. And then depending who was in foul trouble or who had the hot hand, those would help you to make some decisions. But this group's pretty connected right now. The win over Kansas, I think, probably seals the deal. They're probably in a great position to they'd be 9-6. They'd probably be still in about 4th or 5th place. But I think a win tonight would, I think, really seal the deal for BYU getting to the tournament.
The thing with Mag that I didn't see early in the season but seems to be on display here the last 4 or 5 games is I don't know if he's a better passer than I realized, or maybe he's just becoming a better passer, understanding the offense and his teammates and all that kind of stuff. And it's not like I'd want him, running an offense. I'm not saying that. But when he gets the ball in the corner and he's got guys running at him, he can pass off the dribble and get guys layups and dunks in the paint. A little surprising.
Yeah. Yes, it is. And I would have never thought, because I watched practices earlier, I would have never thought the guy would play. But, man, he's got a motor. That dude has a motor. He is just nonstop. And Boscovich is the same thing. They're just two tough, strong-bodied guys that give them kind of an edge, and they're not having to back down against teams that have bigger bigs, and they're not afraid to compete. And so those, for me, Mag and Boscovich, I think, are both the surprises for me. And I'm really happy to see Yegor have some more confidence. I think he was really second guessing himself, and there was times where he was never, he wasn't playing meaningful minutes. He was sitting watching, and I think the coaching staff has a little more confidence in him. But it'll be fun to see how this thing plays out. But I agree with you. Mag and Boscovich have been two guys that have really brought some energy and some intensity and just some toughness.
Coach, we appreciate the time. Thanks for the memories of the pit. The Aggies' memories aren't that great, but as PK says, they've still got a lot of their goals in front of them, so I got to put that behind them.
I thank you for reminding me of the snake. I wrote it down. I'm not going to forget it.
There you go. All right. Thanks,
See
Coach.
you guys.
Steve Cleveland, former BYU basketball coach, joined us here on The Zone. Mike Folta, radio voice of Utah Hockey Club, is going to be here at 9 o'clock. We have Jazz tickets to give away. We will give them away in the next segment to see the Jazz and the Thunder Friday night at the Delta Center. DJ and PK, it's 97.5 The Zone.
This is Jake Scott and Ben Anderson.
You have to be able to shoot in the NBA now outside of maybe a big. I think we're going the direction of even if you're 6'8", if you're a non-shooter, you're in trouble. I've watched it, Ben. I've watched the evolution where you could have 3 non-shooters 10 years ago. Then it went to 2 non-shooters about 5 years ago. When are we getting to the point where it's 1 non-shooter? And eventually, do we go to 0 non-shooters? I don't know. But we're headed.
Celtics won last year with 0 non-shooters. If you're not going to be a great shooter, you really need to have a superpower elsewhere. And the 2 guys I would think about are Jimmy Butler and Ja Morant, who are non-shooters, Ja Morant's the most athletic player in the NBA, and Jimmy has some of the best on-court work ethic when he's dialed in as anybody we've seen. He's a great defensive player.
Hear Jake Scott and Ben Anderson every day from 10 to noon on 97.5 The KSL Sports Zone. When it comes to the biggest moments in Utah sports history,
Say
these guys have seen it all. This is DJ and PK. DJ and PK on 97.5 The KSL Sports Zone.
Don't miss your chance to win big every week on The Zone. This week on Win Tickets Wednesday, you can win a pair of tickets to the Australian Pink Floyd show coming to the Sandy Amphitheater on Sunday, August 10th. Listen to The Zone all day on Wednesday for your chance to win. DJ PK, we got a pair of Jazz tickets to give away, so let's do that right now. 801-575-ZONE. 801-575-ZONE. It's a Jazz Ticket Tuesday. Caller 12. 801-575-ZONE will win a pair of tickets to see the Jazz and the Thunder Friday, the 21st. That is this Friday at the Delta Center. Good luck. All right, just had Steve Cleveland on talking about the NCAA Tournament. It's President's Day. It's on. The stretch run is here. The Utes have swept the Kansas schools. They've improved to 15-11 on the year. They are now 7-8 in the Big 12. Could an NCAA Tournament bid be possible? Yes, it could be possible. Difficult, unlikely, odds are against it. Pick your favorite phrase, but not out of the realm. A lot of fans saying they got to win out.
They're going bowling. I feel it.
Tyler, it's pretty unlikely at this point, but a 4-1 finish with a loss at Arizona could do it if they have a reasonable Big 12 tourney appearance. That 4-1 would give them a couple of Q1 wins, a Q1 loss, and two Q2 wins. add in 1 to 2 conference tournament wins that are probably quad 1 or 2, they would have a shot.
A shot, yeah, I agree.
So you're saying there's a chance.
Absolutely.
And let's see if Tyler is a Ute, Cougar, and Aggie. Utes, Jazz, Aggies. There's Tyler. Everybody loves everybody but BYU.
I watch that TV show.
Oh, yeah.
Love everybody but BYU.
Love everybody but BYU.
Yeah, it's funny.
Can you hum a few bars of the theme song? Doug, they could if they won out, but at Arizona, at BYU, they're not going to do that. He's not buying it. And David says, if they win the conference tournament, they're in. Otherwise, LOL. It's a lot of laughing, David.
Yeah, I don't necessarily think they have to win the conference tournament. Now, if they're playing for the conference title, wow, that might be good enough, right there.
22-12 out in the conference semis. Would that do it? I think it would.
Would for me.
That's 5 wins.
Yeah.
To close out the regular season, and that's 2 wins in the conference tournament.
Right.
Now, we're saying all of this, and you're probably screaming at your radio. Do you guys realize they're 1-6 in road games? Yes, we do. And they have 3 true road games left. So if they hold the form and they lose 2 or 3 of these 3 road games, they're going to the NIT.
Yeah, but I think you have to look at teams and see how they develop. And teams in November and December and even in January, they're not necessarily the same, especially in today's world where there's so many players coming and going, and you have to figure out who's who and doing what and all that stuff. And you look at BYU, they're not nearly the same team that they were early in the season. There's no doubt about it.
You can see them evolving.
Yeah.
I think that it's shocking how Utah State came together as quickly as they did, and I think they're definitely the outlier.
To me, it's not shocking at all.
Why?
Because they had core guys coming back.
Their 2 best players, who are guards who handle the ball a lot. So that's a big piece of the puzzle. Not breaking in a freshman.
The success that they've had, okay, I'll see that. But the fact that they're doing well.
No, I'm not surprised they're doing well.
Does the coach really matter there? If I had to choose between new coach and new players, I take new coach every time, because if that coach is worth a crap, he's going to go in there, and now you can be with these guys a lot more than you used to be able to, and so you could develop it.
Which you need because
right.
you have more developing to do.
Right.
So I agree with everything said about month by month and the learning curve and ramping these teams up. The problem is all the other teams are doing that as well.
Yeah, but who have they beaten? That's wow. I didn't see that coming. San Diego State at San Diego? Who else? And then in the end of the games, Boise, who's doing the shot making? Martinez. He's only been in college 14 years.
Get old, stay old.
And so he's been around, and Falsev is a really good player.
In his 3rd year in the program.
I'm not discounting.
Much bigger role.
Yeah, he's a leader. I think he's the best all-around player. And so, no, I'm not that surprised. The league isn't really that good.
At the time, winning at Nevada seemed like a big deal, but Nevada has subsequently turned out to be, pretty middle of the road. They're beating the bad teams and losing the good teams.
Okay.
So that win. The Iowa win early on.
Sure, yeah. Great. I agree.
But other than that, I get your point. There's a lot of taking care of business here.
And
they've got a lot.
And there's a lot to be said for that.
And they've got a lot of big games in front of them here. The San Diego State,
that's the
Boise
fun part.
State, CSU.
They've done a lot, but they haven't done anything.
Yeah. Those 3 games, and then presumably you could have 2 or 3 more big games. Whoever's in that 4 or 5 game in the conference tournament, that'll be entertaining.
Oh, they're going to have big games, yeah.
Yeah.
They have big games that are already scheduled.
Whether it's
and
a
then if
quarter or
they
semi.
do what we expect them to do, they'll have big games in Vegas. Yeah, absolutely, man. They're in a position to accomplish a lot, and I'm excited for them to see what they can do. And they've got decent role players. I don't think those role players played as well as they had been in New Mexico, but that's somewhat understandable. I really can't criticize that loss. I mean, and of course, New Mexico shot way more free throws. That's college hoop.
They've got 3 conference losses, and that is easily the most explainable, most predictable defeat. That you went to the pit in a year when they were really good and lost by 3, and they shot twice as many free throws as you did.
Predictable.
Right. Blowing the lead, the 9-point lead with 15 minutes to go at home, that's one. If you want to beat yourself up, go beat yourself up on that.
And basketball.
Or the Vegas loss. There you go. There's your 3 conference losses if you want to.
And Vegas was by 2 points or something like that.
3 points.
Yeah. Come here, on the road. The showgirls over there distracting you. All sorts of stuff. I've been to Thomas and Mack many times, and I've gotten distracted. Like when Van Horn was making those shots at the buzzer, I wasn't paying a lick of attention.
Bull. Everybody was paying attention.
I was over there looking at other stuff, man. Guy opened him. Did you see that shot? No, what happened? He just put one in at the buzzer. I said, big deal. I'll catch it tomorrow. Sure enough, what did he do? He put a shot in at the buzzer. and then in the final, he goes for like 37. And then we go back to the draft, and we're sitting there. They do the breakout interviews the day before the draft. The top guys, they all sit at a table, and you can go around, and I'm just following Van Horn. I'd covered him for 4 years. There was nothing more for me to say. I just sat there. One guy asked him, "You think you've done enough to be drafted this high?" I said, "He did enough in Vegas a couple of weeks ago. What are you talking about?" Or a couple of months ago, I mean. Did you see those games? And then somebody asked him, do you have a chip on your shoulder for not being recruited by Pac-10 schools so you had to go to Utah? He was recruited by Pac-10 schools. He chose to go to Utah. All these assumptions. Hey, what about you, being a Mormon going in the NBA? I'm not a Mormon. Because he's white.
He's a white guy at Utah. He must be a Mormon who wasn't recruited by the Pac-10.
I know. He's right into the stereotypes. Yeah. And they were asking him, you weren't? Well, what's the deal about being a non-Mormon in Utah? They quickly pivoted, which was
really... Got to be a quick thinker.
Right. And they were asking him about the makeup. And he looks at me and he says, "What do you think the makeup is?"
You're his research assistant.
Yeah. Because I'm just sitting there. I'm doing a story on the questions that are being asked to him.
Well, you've asked him everything at this point.
I know. 4 years.
Nothing left to talk
Right,
about.
exactly. Yeah, I covered him all the 4 years. Yeah, for sure. And so we're talking about that.
Just such a dinosaur now.
Yeah.
I mean, there are seniors who are playing, but they don't go to the NBA. They win in college, but they don't.
Yeah, and that was that year. Yeah. Him and Duncan went 1-2.
Right.
Both.
And they certainly don't stay at one school either.
Yeah.
I mean, Auburn's number 1, and they won the big game with Alabama and all that. And they got like 6 guys scoring in double figures, and 5 of them are seniors.
And I got some news over the weekend that I was reading, and wow, man, this makes me nervous about the Jazz.
And that is?
I think we should get to it next.
Oh, look at you with the tease.
Yeah.
All right, fine. PK's sweating bullets. We'll all find out why together right after this break. Stay with us.
Ladies and gentlemen, may I present...
This is JJ and Alex.
Tim Reynolds, the AP, covers the NBA and does a phenomenal job at it. Where does this one rank? Has to be right up there.
I mean, it's one of one. The secrecy of it in this day and age is obviously one of a kind. I mean, it's crazy that they were able to pull it off with such secrecy, but now we know why it was so secret. If Luka found out about it, he'd have said no. Guys, nobody knows the Utah Jazz are in this trade. Like, literally nobody. You're going to help the Lakers, Danny, by facilitating this. Do you think that would have gone well? There was a lot of reasons for secrecy, but some people are definitely of the mindset of that this was not done totally on the up and up. But a lot of people are saying this isn't exactly the way you're supposed to do big business.
Catch JJ and Alex afternoons from 3 to 6. Presented by G2G Bars on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. 20 years and still going strong. Utah's #1 sports radio show for over 2 decades. You're listening to DJ and PK on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
Join Hans and Scotty Wednesday at RGS Exteriors from noon to 3, 4235 Farm Road in West Jordan. DJ and PK, it's 97.5 The Zone. All right, you're worried. You're sweating it.
Yeah. I saw over the weekend that Cooper Flagg said he'd like to return for another season. Now, I don't know if that was just posturing, but listening to him speak about it, it seemed like it was serious, and he doesn't really need to. I don't think he needs to posture as far as who he cares about, who's going to draft him, because if you waited till the following year, given the fact that so many teams tank, I don't know that you can pick your team. But if he does return, which I think would be a long shot because he'd be leaving a ton of money and then get the opportunity to get the bigger money the way the league is set up with the second and third contracts. You'd have to wait another year, so you might as well get started now. But apparently he's having the time of his life, which is cool to hear, and it actually would be cool from a personal development. If you love something, go ahead and continue to do it. The money will come, and he's getting money through other deals now. But the point being, the Jazz most desperately need to lose, man. They have to get a top 3 pick, especially if Flagg is gone.
Now the draft isn't as deep. It's not just losing him at the one spot,
right?
But
everybody moves up,
right? So you're thinking, well, we love the top 3, and suddenly it's a top 2. So what if you're drafting third?
Right. Yeah, and you've got they got like 28 games to go, and it is super important. And they needed everything and then some to lose to the Clippers the other night. I mean, I realize Leonard wasn't playing, and I don't think he plays back to back. But still, you played well. Filipowski playing very well as they sat out Kessler. To me, this team, it's so weird because I see it coming together, playing better ball, and that makes me nervous for winning games.
You know me and numbers. I have a number in my head. At any time, I probably have 50 or 100 of them. But I have a number of how many games I think this team could win if they were trying to win games. What do you think that number is? You may not have considered this.
I haven't. But
go with your gut instinct. That's what you trust anyway.
Over the last 26 you're talking
over
about?
82 games. How many? If this team were trying to win, what would their record really be?
It's somewhat difficult to say because they may not have been given a guy like Collier as much opportunity. And so would he have developed?
That's
and
your
so
point. Sure.
If they just went with, we're going to try to win every game possible.
And I'm also like, how many of these guys sitting? You know, I think Clarkson actually had a real injury and he would have sat. Markkanen, I think, would have played probably at least half the games he's missed.
Oh, and Kessler would have played the other night.
Kessler would not have rested at all.
Yeah, they said he had a thumb or something.
Yeah, right.
I would say in the 37 comes to mind.
Oh, okay. That was a little higher than me. I thought 30.
But that's with the development of the young guys. But if they were trying to win,
would they develop?
If they were trying to win,
how would the minutes have been managed?
Collier wouldn't have been able to play the level that he has. They basically inserted him when he hadn't done anything to be inserted, except for a few minutes here and there. Now
he's taken off.
Right. And so that's.
But maybe he hasn't taken off because he never gets those minutes because they're trying to win.
Friggin' Stockton sat the bench. Darren Williams sat the bench. And Collier's playing big time.
Yep.
You tell me he's better than those guys? Well, if he is, then I'm going to kiss Ainge on the lips.
That's why the media is not allowed in large parts of the arena anymore.
He's going to be better than Stockton? Come on.
They call it the PK rule.
It's a PK rule.
Get out of town.
We've curtained off large sections of the downstairs.
I mean, 2 All-Stars, one a big-time Hall of Famer, didn't play the first year to the way Collier is getting these minutes over and over and over, and he's producing. So they probably wouldn't have the development. So there's no question that they're doing it the right way because it is about the young guys and doing their thing. And I don't even know that Kessler would be as developed as he is if they went and just decided we're all in to win at all times. But I'm nervous because I see this development now. When Collier has a 10-assist game and Kessler has a double-double with 3 blocks, I don't bat an eyelash anymore. And if they continue to do that and play Markkanen and play Collins, and Collins has been very good consistently. He's not a star, but in his role, he's been very consistent. Having him get 18 and 7 or 8 or 9, I don't bat an eyelash either.
He's just been so efficient. He doesn't. There are guys who get that, but it takes so many shots to get it. You're like, this isn't winning basketball.
So what are they going to do here?
But
I would tell those guys when they broke the other day, Okay, we don't have a game till March 7th. See you then. See if you can fool them. And wherever they went, stay there. And don't work out, guys. Last thing we want you to do is work out.
So help me if we find out one of you's been on a treadmill.
Yeah. Make sure that you do not maintain your conditioning.
Go to the beach and take a nap.
Yeah. And go to those all-inclusives so you can order. You don't have to order drinking food. You've already prepaid it, so you might as well have as much as you want.
Shrimp cocktail
I'm
every
not
hour
saying
on the
alcoholic
hour.
beverages, but still.
More
soda?
mashed potatoes.
Yeah, go 3-4 times. Like you're on a cruise on land.
I paid for it. I better eat it.
Oh, heck yeah. Yeah. It's like that my wife and I, when we were down in the Caribbean and we're taking a catamaran over to St. John's, and we were leaving from St. Thomas, and it was prepaid, and we get down there at 8 o'clock, and I'm having all these cinnamon rolls and what I thought was orange juice. Now, it had some orange juice.
Mr. Kinahan, there's something you ought to know about the orange juice.
Yeah. I had like 4 of them. She takes a sip of this. I don't think these are just orange. I said, what do you mean? It's 8 o'clock in the morning. That's orange juice. Yeah, but they got something else in it. And why don't you get down from hanging up there where you're swinging around?
Swinging from the chandelier.
Yeah.
The catamaran now also has a PK rule.
Unbeknownst to me, I was totally loaded. And it wasn't even 9 o'clock on a Sunday.
It's almost an Elton John song.
Yeah. I didn't know mimosos. Is that what they call it? I'm so naive when it comes to that stuff. What did I know?
It's naive.
Right. I had no clue. So I tell these guys, go ahead, live it up on the break. Get yourself out of shape. Because, man, I'm nervous that they win too many games. Now, I did watch on Saturday, I think it was, Jacashonis. I watched the whole game. They played, Illinois played Michigan State. Illinois got out to the big lead. Michigan State came back
I didn't
and won
watch it. Can he shoot off the dribble?
He looked good.
He thinks he can shoot off the dribble, but he can't shoot off the dribble.
Well, okay, then pass it to him.
That'd be a good idea.
Tell me what you can't do. Tell me what you can do.
He can do a lot. He's got a lot of size. He's really comfortable handling the ball. He's already closer to the NBA body
totally.
than most of the guys they've drafted.
Absolutely, no question.
You know,
he's got an NBA body right now, especially for a youngster.
Hendricks, Williams, they got a.
No, they're not even close.
Right.
They're puppies, and he's a full-grown Great
And
Dane.
honestly, I'm picking on the one thing he can't do because he can do a lot of stuff.
What do you think? He's
But
Kobe here?
He thinks he can shoot threes off the dribble. And in the games I've watched, 2 for 20. What?
Yeah, but why not do it now?
Oh, yeah. D. Will. Well, D. Will didn't shoot threes off the dribble. And Donovan Mitchell, that was something he added after he'd been here a couple of years. So he's trying it in games. It's not working.
Great.
I know. He's not going to be a finished product. If he were, he'd be number one, and it'd be.
Name me a finished product at when you're a teen.
Yeah.
They don't exist. Well, one, Magic.
There it is.
Yeah, he exists.
Well, he was actually.
Oh, he was a finished product.
He was he 20 or 21 when he won his rookie year? Won it all.
Yeah, but I'm talking right now. I'm not talking about down the line. I'm talking about right now.
Even Magic, when he won the 3 titles in 4 years, it was his freshman year in college, his 19-year-old year that he didn't win.
I'm concerned that this team wins too many games. They're going to have to make a concerted effort.
Okay, is that something Cooper Flagg just says because he's having a good time
I don't
and
know.
he's loving it?
I don't know. And when it ends, that's over.
Yeah, and then cooler heads prevail.
I
and
understand.
then you make a business decision. You make the whole list of reasons.
But he has sponsorships now. So he's getting big-time money as we speak.
Right.
And it's not under the table.
And he can afford the insurance policy for the future earnings, just in case there's some horrible injury.
And maybe he wants to win it all. And the odds of any team winning it all are long because it's a one-and-done tournament, right? And so Duke may have the most talent, but somebody gets hot, somebody gets cold, blah, blah, blah. So I don't know. But he did say that, and we are now later in the college season. College season essentially has 3 to 4 weeks to go. If you go longer, it would have 4 to 5 weeks, and that would be it. So it did. I was concerned a little bit when he said that from the Jazz perspective, combined with they're playing well, and New Orleans has made a concerted effort to suck. and Charlotte sucks, and the Wizards already suck.
Now, the Wizards, there's a concerted effort.
Right. Well, I think the other two, the injuries to Charlotte and then trading Ingram over to Toronto and Williamson, does he play 2 games in a row ever?
At the top, we always talk about separating the pretenders from the contenders. And at the bottom, the same thing has happened. There were teams that were really bad there for a while.
Right.
But
Portland's got it together.
Toronto, Brooklyn. For a while, they were in the mix.
Together from the tanking perspective.
Right. And now they're up there at their 17, 20, 23 wins. And you see this other group focused on the number 13.
Yeah.
Charlotte, Utah, New Orleans, all sitting on 13 victories. Who's going to have the 4th odds and risk dropping to 8th?
Right.
If things break the wrong way.
That would bother me.
DJ and PK, it's 97.5 The Zone, the radio voice of the Utah Hockey Club. Mike Folta joins us next. Stay with us.